it's Becky. Welcome to my channel and Happy New Year. Today I am doing a really fun video that I was super psyched to film for you guys. I actually got all my notes and everything ready last week and I was like, I can't wait to film this video. I cannot wait to share this with you because I think it's going to be life-changing, not just for me, but for you as well. So if you have watched my channel, especially in 2022, I talked a little bit about mindset and your perspective, which really mindset is just a fancy way of saying your perspective. I talked about it a little bit last year, especially pertaining to being a mom. And I've always considered myself a fairly positive person, but I have noticed in the last few years, it has been a little bit more of a challenge to stay as positive, to keep my mind right when it comes to looking to the bright side of things. That's been a challenge for me, and finding myself falling into negative thought patterns, either about myself or certain circumstances. So if that's you, then today's video is definitely for you. Stay tuned to the end of this video. I'll be sharing a little bit of the positivity that I'm taking with me into 2023. But first, let's play a game. I'm gonna put a picture up and we're gonna play a game. Look at this picture and think red. So I bet all of a sudden, all of the red pieces in the picture popped out to you. Now think blue. Do you see more of the blue pieces now than you did before? That happens because your mind is telling you what to look for, and so automatically those things are gonna pop out to you. We used to play that with the Christmas tree when we were kids. We would look at the multicolored lights on the tree and we would think blue. And then it seems like magic, all of the blue lights would be the first thing we noticed, or yellow, and all the yellow lights would pop out first. And also as an American, 9/11 is a significant date in our history. Very memorable, and it seemed like ever since then, every time I looked at the clock, it was 9/11. Of course, it was time versus a date, but still, it was 9/11, and I remember that happened over and over and over. So finally I told my mom, and I was like, every time I look at the clock, it's 9/11. And she said, well, how many times a day do you look at the clock and it's not 9/11? But 9/11 stands out to me because it's memorable, and my brain is telling me this is significant, this is different, this is memorable. When really, yes, I look at the clock a million times a day, but 9/11 stood out to me because it was something already ingrained in my brain to watch for, that was notable in my brain. So our brains are wired to take the path of least resistance. They like doing what they have always done before, meaning our brains will think and look for the things that we have told it to think and look for. So if you tell yourself that you're unlucky, I'm such bad luck, I'm a jinx, I ruin everything I touch, bad things always happen to me, if it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be me, if there's gonna be a short end of the straw, it's gonna be mine. You have programmed your brain to look for all of those unlucky things that might happen to you in any given day. You're telling it what to look for. You're saying, this is important, this is memorable, this is a truth about myself, this is a truth about my life and circumstance, and you need to notice every time something unlucky happens to make that thought true. So that's what you've done. You have programmed your brain to look for negative things that happen to you all day long so that you can fulfill that thought of, yes, I'm so unlucky, bad things always happen to me. But I am sure, and I can pretty much guarantee you, there are good things that have happened to you all throughout the day that you completely ignored because your brain is looking for those negative things that you've told it to look for. So I have always told my girls, my oldest especially, she's 18, almost 19, I always tell them, be careful what you tell yourself because your brain is listening. Your brain is listening to you, obviously, and it is picking up all these cues that you're telling it to have. It's picking up all of these things you're telling it to look for and believe. So with that in mind, if our brain is doing that because it likes this path of repetition, it likes this path that you have dug over and over and over in your brain like a mental rut, it's going to keep doing those things because that's what you've told it to do. The bad thing about that is it can make you feel stuck and you can feel very negative and discouraged and overwhelmed. But the good thing about that is you can reprogram your brain to have new paths, get rid of the old pathways and make new pathways that are positive and build you up instead of tear you down. I think it's amazing that we don't have to be stuck in a negative mentality. And I think it's really freeing to know that you have the power to change your perspective. Nobody else can do that for you. Thoughts are not facts and they can be changed. Whether it's subconscious or not, you are already telling yourself things about yourself. You're already telling yourself things about your circumstances and about your life. So why not tell yourself good things? Why not fill your brain with positivity and an optimistic outlook versus being negative and beating yourself down mentally and physically and looking for the bad in other people and looking for the bad in the world? You have the power to change that. But it doesn't happen overnight. You know, your brain has had months, maybe years, maybe a lifetime of thinking a certain thing for so long that you have dug this path and this rut so deep that it can be very difficult to get out of. It's kind of like losing weight. You're not gonna go exercise one time and get to your dream goal weight. It's a great start, but you're not gonna make any significant change doing that. It's the day in and day out consistent effort that's going to make a change in your body, and it's the day in, day out consistent effort that's gonna make a difference in your mind, your mindset, your perspective, your negativity, your optimism. This is not manifestation. This is not the practice that people have that say, I want to have a mansion, so I'm going to say every day, I'm going to own a mansion. And that'll put it out in the universe, and the universe will give me what I ask for. This is not that. This is godly positivity. The Bible says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. That's Psalm 19:14. The words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart. That's the things you think about. That's the things that you tell yourself over and over and over again. So let the words of your mouth and the meditation of your heart, the things you think about the most, be acceptable in your sight. And I don't think God wants us to be negative about ourselves. He doesn't want us to be negative towards other people. He doesn't want us to be down on ourselves. He wants us to be thankful and optimistic. And so I really feel like that verse in itself tells us that there is truth in this, that you can change what you meditate on, what you focus on, what you let yourself believe. So just to get that straight, this is not some kind of like, you know, manifestation type of thing. It's a godly thing. So there are some things that I wanted to really focus on, either things that I have found myself struggling with or things that I have already started to implement and like changes I've already tried to make in my brain that I want to continue making in 2023 and going forward. Now these are, some of them are, you know, they're personal because obviously they're showing you flaws or things that I find that are flaws in myself that I want to work on, but that's okay because I'm here to be open with you guys. So I've got those all typed up. And I can always add to these. You can always add to these. You don't have to just make these statements about, you know, your positive outlook on yourself and then think, well, I've got these and these are the ones I'm going to have forever. They're going to they might change over time. You might get to a point where you don't need to remind yourself of this. You can move on to something else that you want to work on, another pathway in your brain you want to rewire. But these are the ones that I'm starting with that I feel like need the most work or that I have made progress in, but I want to continue. So the first thing is I am patient and I respond with grace. That's who I want to be. These are all things that I want to be. At the end of the day, if I, you know, died tomorrow, I would want these things to be things that I was known for. So being patient and responding with grace. I don't know. I mean, I'm not mean, but I definitely could very easily have a temper if I let myself go. And I can sometimes respond negatively just because it's like a defense mechanism. I'm like, well, you did this, I'm going to say this right back. So thinking first, being patient and responding with grace. So whenever a situation arises and I think I really want to snap, I'm thinking no, because I don't want to be that way. I want to be patient and I want to respond to you with grace. It's not like I have to say that out loud, but I'm telling myself I am patient and I'm going to respond with grace. And so that's rewiring my brain to think I'm not using the crutch anymore of, well, it's just the way I am and I've got a hot temper sometimes. Oh, well. No, I'm changing that pathway to say that I am patient and I'm responding with grace. The second one is I use hardships as an opportunity to strengthen my faith and dependence on God and His sovereignty. This is a big one, I think, for anybody because, you know, it's easy to be close to God when life is going good. It's easy to be, you know, God's best friend when there's not a struggle really going on in your life. But it's when you are being tested and in times of trial and hardship that you really see who you are as a Christian and as a believer. I want to use hardships as an opportunity to strengthen my faith and dependence on God. And I know that's easy to say now because I'm not in a huge crisis right now, but it is definitely something I want to focus on. And I have learned over the years when I was in times of crisis and hardship that was really my only way out, was to lean on God. And I think sometimes that's why we have difficult times in life. That's why we go through trials, because God is nudging us. Hey, remember me? You need me. So that's one way I want to try to think of hardships in the future. It's not going to be easy, but I definitely want to try to remember that that's who I want to be. And so that's a pathway that I want my brain to make of, this is a hard time. This is a hard thing I'm going through. I need God. Go to God first. Before asking anybody else help, before complaining about it, go to God first. The third one, another big one for me. I am thankful and proud of my body and will prioritize exercise and rest. I had half of this down for some of my life. I am thankful for my body, but I'm not proud of it a lot of times. And also I would prioritize exercise, but not rest. And I feel like it needs both. It needs both. I want to be thankful and proud of my body. I want to be thankful for the body that I have and proud of it for the way that it is and for what it has done and for what it can do. And I also want to prioritize exercise, which I usually do, but also rest. That's kind of a new thing that I added because I find guilt in resting. I find guilt when I'm like, I didn't exercise today. I feel bad about that. I didn't exercise this week. I feel bad about that. And of course you should have, you know, some type of gumption that makes you want to get up off the couch and do something, but I don't want to beat myself up over it. And I also want to prioritize doing workouts that before I would have always thought, this is lame. This is not hard enough. I'm not sweating. You know, I'm not lifting as heavy as I can lift. I'm not beating myself up with this cardio workout. It's not a good enough workout. I'm really trying to focus on not just doing it. Those workouts are great and they definitely have a place and I do need them in my life, but also prioritizing flexibility, body weight movements, functional movements, because I've learned, especially in the last couple months when I've had a lot of shoulder and kind of arm, neck stuff going on and have been limited in what I was able to do, I'm realizing that there's a lot of spaces in my mental life that I am weak in, that I need to exercise. And there's also a lot of spots on my body that are not getting hit with my usual workouts. A lot of those fine muscles and smaller muscles that I'm missing. So you're only going to get those by doing workouts that I've not been doing before. I've always been doing like the, you know, the heavy weights and all this stuff, but there's a lot to be said for body weight movements or a lot of repetitions with a lighter weight, things like that that I really want to incorporate. And then also taking rest when I need it, not using it as a crutch to say, well, I'm tired, I don't want to work out today, but actual rest when I really truly need it. So that's a big one for me. The fourth one is I make time for God every day. As a Christian, this is hard for me to say and admit out loud that I'm still not good at this. After 42 years of being on earth and about 32 years of that being a Christian, it is still every single day struggle for me to make time for God. Why do I find it so hard in my daily life to make time for God? Dedicated time where I sit down and talk to him, read about him, learn about him. You know, and I have devotionals and I have gratitude journals and of course I have Bibles and I do all these things and little bits and pieces of things I do here, but it takes such conscious effort for me to do that because I'm always thinking I should be doing something else. No, this is what I should be doing. That should come over and above any single other thing I could be doing in the day. But yet every single day I wake up and I'm like, well, I don't have time to pray right now. I need to get up and go pay some bills, or I need to get up and edit a video. That is definitely not the way that I want to keep living my life. And so I make time for God every day. That's my new pathway that I'm telling myself, to make it a priority, to make it a mental non-negotiable. I make time for God every single day. Also, I am accessible and I prioritize time with my kids, husband, and family. This is something that I feel like I have been good about and I am good about, I feel like, but I definitely think we need more effort. We did start that in the last couple years, especially since 2020, we've been doing a lot more conscious family time, but I want to continue that. So this is one of those ones that I said I've already made a lot of progress in, but I also want to improve even more. And it takes intentional planning. People are busy. My husband has a job. I work from home. We homeschool. My oldest daughter has a job. You know, there's things that are going on that could very easily pull us away from doing things as a family. But I'm trying to make sure, and I have been trying to be very, very intentional when I'm planning out our month and our weeks, that I'm making time for family time. I'm making time to go somewhere with my husband. I'm making time to do things with my kids, you know. And I make it sound like we don't do things together. We've always been really good about doing things with the girls, like especially me and them, but it's harder to do family things, and obviously it's another step in that direction to do things with my husband, because we've let date nights fall by the wayside, or had, until about the last couple months. So we've been trying to really be intentional about going out at least a couple times a month, doing little marriage meetings where we sit down and talk about, you know, things that we like that the other one did, or things we need help with, or maybe upcoming projects to kind of keep my husband in the loop, especially because he's gone a lot of the times and I have all these ideas of things that I want to do, but then I don't tell him until the last minute, and then he's like blindsided. So it's been really nice to sit down and kind of have this marriage meeting where I say, okay, this is upcoming, you know, so-and-so needs to go here. We need to start budgeting for this thing. You know, what do you have coming up? And really just sitting down and sharing what is going on, either personally or as a family, or things in the future, because That's very easily something that I have always taken the responsibility to do, but then not told him about. And so that's been really good. And then also doing a marriage devotional. We just started a new one last week. We're still kind of deciding if we're going to use that one, but definitely finding something we can do to bring God into our relationship that goes back to the I make time for God, because we're both Christians, but we're very separate in what we do to have time with God. And so this is important for us to, as uncomfortable as it might seem for us, because we've not done it, but doing things that are godly things, putting God in our relationship, doing a devotional and having devotional time together, that's a new thing for us. So that's been really good. And then also, this is a big one for me, I communicate my feelings instead of keeping them bottled up. It is okay to be vulnerable. That is something that is completely 100% against my grain. That is one of those ones you could say, that's just how I am. I've always been that way. Well, maybe, but that doesn't mean you have to continue being that way. And it may take me a very long time to break down some of these habits that I've had of just keeping things inside, because I don't like confrontation. I don't like to seem vulnerable to people. And so I like to keep things in, and I'll just deal with it. I'll just let it go. And then you do that over time. You teach yourself to not validate your feelings to anybody. You're telling yourself basically, my feelings don't matter. I'm just going to bottle these all up because I don't want to make somebody mad. I don't want to start an argument. And it's also not healthy for me. It definitely has a lot to do with my mental state, my anxiety, and just how I think about somebody in particular. They may not even know that I'm mad at something that they did 6 months ago because I didn't tell them, but I'm still thinking about it, and they have no clue that it's even on my radar. So it's really important for me to break that cycle, and it is going to be a hard one. That honestly, besides the making time for God every day, this will be one of the hardest ones, because it is how I have always been. I have always been that way. And so it's going to be a struggle for me to communicate. And my husband's been really good about it, because he knows that I'm that way. And there's been some times when I've tried to shut down and just like pull out of the conversation. He'll say, no, why? What are you talking about? What are you saying? Talk to me, he'll say. And that's really good for him to do that, because even though in the time it's uncomfortable for me, it forces me to go like, keep going and keep talking about it instead of just withdrawing and pulling into myself. So these are all new pathways that I want to make. And again, I'm not saying them so that the universe can give them to me. No, I am retraining my brain to have new thoughts about myself and how I handle situations. It's not the same thing as putting it out in the universe and expecting the universe to bring it to me. I'm going to work for these things. Nobody's going to give these to me. These are all going to take work and conscious everyday effort on my part to make them happen. So I don't want to call it manifestation, because to me, from what I've heard about it, that does not seem biblical, first of all, but also it seems like you're expecting somebody else to give you something, and I'm not into that. I'm into earning what I have and making it happen for myself. So with God's help. So that's what these are for me. So I'm going to keep repeating these to myself. I'm going to keep them on my planner. I'm going to keep them other places, not everywhere. I don't feel like the whole world needs to be seeing what I need to tell myself every day. But places that I'm going to see them consistently. And then use them when I find myself falling into old patterns. Because these are the things that I want to focus on. This is who I want to be as a person. I want somebody to say, Becky was patient and she responded with grace, and every hardship she had in her life she used as an opportunity to grow in her strength with her relationship with Christ. And she was so proud of her body and confident, and she made being healthy a priority, and she also made resting a priority, and she made time for God every day, and she was always there to spend time with her kids and her husband and her family. And she was so good at communicating what she felt, honestly but nicely, how she felt, and opening up communication and drawing people close to her and being vulnerable. That's what I want to be known for. That's what I want people to say about me, and that's what I want to be able to say about myself. So it's all about retraining my brain to think that these things that are maybe a little bit abstract will become concrete in my mind, and new pathways that I'm making for myself. And you can do it too. All you have to do is sit down and think about who you want to be. What do you want to be known for? What are some patterns that you find yourself falling into, or that you've had your whole life maybe, that you don't like, but you can change? Sit down with a piece of paper and write an entire list. I don't care if it's 2 things, I don't care if it's 20 things. Write them all down, and then you can pick out a couple to focus on at once. You can't focus on them all. You can't focus on a million things. Your eyes, if you're trying to look at something, your focusing is kind of right here. You're not going to be able to see everything out here. So write down what you want to be known for, who you want to be, and what you want to start telling yourself about how you feel about yourself and how you respond to situations and how you respond to other people. And then pick out maybe your top 2, 4, 5. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, I have 6. But I put that many on there because like I said, some of these I feel like I've already made a lot of progress in. I just want to make sure they're still on my radar for a little while until they're 100% a complete, non-negotiable kind of autopilot thing. But definitely I wouldn't do more than 6 probably, unless they're super, super small, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You want to make this something you can do realistically day in and day out. And if you have a list a mile long, that's going to overwhelm you and you're going to give up. And then you're going to say, see, I gave up, because that's what I do. I give up. Don't do that. Just pick a couple, focus on those until they become a habit, a new positive rut in your mind, and then move on. So if you care to share, I shared with you guys, if you care to share, you can let me know some of the positive things that you want to start training your brain to think about yourself, your family, your situation, whatever it is. If you want to share them with me in the comments, I would be really interested to know. I mean, I know it's kind of a vulnerable thing, and that kind of goes back to my last thing about being vulnerable. This is a step in that direction of sharing my vulnerability with you, because to me, I've always thought, oh, being vulnerable makes you weak. When you're vulnerable, people can hurt you. But maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but that doesn't mean that I want to become hardened and introverted just because other people might be able to hurt me. Because it's just like on Nemo when he said, what did he say? Marlin tells Dory that he promised Nemo nothing would ever happen to him, and Dory said, that's a funny thing to promise. Nothing ever happens to him, nothing will ever happen to him, you know. And it's the same thing with being vulnerable. If I don't put myself out there, then I can't expect other people to be vulnerable with me. If I don't put myself out there, then I am making myself closed off, and I don't want to be that way. So if you want to share that with me, I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say that you want to start working on about yourself. And also let me know if you'd like more videos on this topic. I know it's not really a departure from my channel, but especially the last year, because I've been working so much and talking about big changes I've made in my life, about living more slowly and being more intentional and working on your mindset. So it's not terribly a huge departure, but it is kind of a branch of that same kind of a concept, I feel like. So if you'd like to see more videos along this line, then let me know in the comments. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.